Have you worked at a McDonald's before?
Oh,
no.
That is so great.
Brought to you by Rheingold Beer. Here we are at the Minnesota Twins game.
Let's get the rumba going.
Next up. Today, the Minnesota Twins play the New York Mets in a match that has been done because it's winter time.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Careless Whisper. What will Stacy do? Will George get this new word? Will Tom ever find one?
Yeah, this sound is a little cheesy.
Okay, you can change the
Let's
rhythm.
see. Oh,
Okay, there. Okay.
it's the vibrato that's.
Will George ever find peace and harmony in the sound of his instruments? Ladies and gentlemen, he has found the sound. This is brought to you by Dial Soap. Don't you wish everybody used Dial? Have you found Jesus?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, jetzt geht's los. Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Folge JazzrockTV, der ersten im Jahre 2014.
Richtig,
Ja.
2014.
Kann man
Unser
uns
großes Jubiläumsjahr, ne?
Unser großes Jubiläumsjahr, wir feiern dieses Jahr 5-jähriges. Ich habe 1981 noch geglaubt, dass im Jahre 2000 die Autos fliegen können.
Echt?
Ja. Habe aber nicht gedacht, dass wir mit Handys telefonieren oder so. Dass jeder so seine Multimedia-Station in der Jackentasche hat. Na gut, die Autos fliegen noch nicht, aber die Handys sind da, die Smartphones und wir sind auch wieder da. Und wir haben heute einen ganz besonderen Leckerbissen, nämlich eine Band namens Third Rail.
Ja. Gerade formiert quasi, ne?
Genau,
Muss man
mag
sagen.
dem einen oder anderen noch nicht so viel sagen. Vielleicht habt ihr schon mal was auf YouTube entdeckt. Da gab es ein paar Videos. Und hinter Third Rail verbergen sich George Witty an den Keyboards, Tom Brechtlein am Schlagzeug und Whitty and Gwizdala am Bass. Also ein furioses Keyboard-Trio.
Ja, so,
nennen.
würde man sagen, wie sagt man jetzt, ist so Supergroup, ne? So eine Fusion,
Ja, eigentlich
so eine
ja. Ne? Also,
Fusion
weil die haben alle
Supergroup,
natürlich
ne?
ihre Vita und ich meine, da können wir jetzt ein Laufband einblenden oder so. Whitty and Gwizdala und Tom Brechtlein, die haben mit allen gespielt, von Chick Corea, Michael Brecker und so weiter angefangen. Aber ich mag es auch nicht immer, diese Namen aufzuzählen. Und George Witty ist halt der Head vom Ganzen. Und George Witty ist ein Keyboarder, der bei ganz coolen, wichtigen Alben eigentlich in der Musikszene mitgewirkt hat. Immer so ein bisschen im Hintergrund als Programmer, als Arranger, als Keyboarder. Und dazu gehören, wir haben hier mal 3 liegen. Das ist nicht gerade Jazzrock, das ist Celine Dion, Falling Into You. Aber das war ihr großes Ding, als sie rauskam.
Ist sie eigentlich
ja?
von dir oder hast du die deiner Frau geklaut?
Nee, die ist von mir. Ne?
so.
Und
Ich muss
dann gab's
gestehen, ich habe keine Platte von sie.
lange davor schon George Witty mit Chaka Khan.
Ja.
The Woman I Am hatte auch ein paar Tracks drauf, die von ihm sind und die er arrangiert hat und wo er Keyboards gespielt hat. Hören wir gleich alles nochmal rein. Und dann war er lange der Techniker eigentlich von Herbie Hancock, der Keyboard-Techniker, der die ganzen Sounds programmiert hat, der seine Keyboards gepflegt hat, poliert hat, weiß ich nicht. Und ja, und irgendwann hat Herbie dann gesagt, hör mal, was
du
war nicht
mehr als
sonst
nur
so?
Schrauben, oder was?
Und was dann passiert ist, das erzählt er uns alles im Interview. Aber ich würde sagen, wir steigen mal ganz fröhlich ein mit einer lockeren Nummer aus dem alten Pfandhaus. Da haben wir nämlich das Konzert mitgeschnitten von den dreien. Und George Witty hat selbst auch Audio-Tracks mitgeschnitten und hat sich zu Hause hingesetzt.
Ja, das war auch wieder nochmal so ein Beispiel, da sieht man jetzt auch in den Clips, was das irgendwie schon für eine coole Location ist. Ne? Also das war für so eine kleine, für so ein Trio, ne? Der Sound war top. Ne?
Genau.
Schönes Licht, schön
Licht,
klein,
ja.
man war nah dran. Das war wirklich klasse und das sieht man jetzt auch im Video und dann gucken wir
Ja,
mal
und
den
George
ersten
ist nach Hause
Schritt rein.
gefahren, hat seinen Audiomitschnitt gemixt und hat uns den wieder zurückgeschickt. Und das Ergebnis aus unserem Video und Georges Audio seht ihr jetzt. Chicago Opener von Third Rail.
Ja, Chicago Opener, Hammer-Track.
Ja,
Hammer-Track, Hammer-Band.
Absolut.
Also die drei hier, George Witty, Tom Brechtlein, Whitty and Gwizdala, unglaublich.
wie die zusammenspielen, also gerade Yannick und Tom, wenn du das beobachtest, ne, in der Kamera, die wir so am Schlagzeug hatten, da siehst du im Hintergrund den Janek, der manchmal leider hinter so einem Mikroständer oder sowas verschwindet, aber du siehst, wie die ständig kommunizieren. Also sie sind ständig im Kontakt. Ne? Und ja, wir waren auch in Kontakt mit George, der saß hier, wo ich jetzt sitze, und ich habe ihn fröhlich befragt. Und ein Ding war, ich habe ein bisschen recherchiert und geguckt, wer ist eigentlich George Witty, und habe gefunden, ja okay, mit Herbie Hancock und hier Celine Dion, Chaka Khan und die ganzen Sachen, die er gemacht hat, aber ich habe nichts aus seiner Jugend gefunden. Deswegen hat mich das mal besonders interessiert. Ja, schaut mal. Ja, ich freue mich, heute Abend einen besonderen Gast hier bei uns zu haben, und das ist George Witty. George, welcome and thanks for taking your time.
Thank
in
you.
your quite busy tour schedule at the moment in Europe. And we are very proud that you're here.
I'm proud to be here.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I was trying to find out something about your past, you know. I found a lot of big names like Herbie Hancock, Carlos Santana, Celine Dion, Randy Brecker, you name it, everybody who George worked with.
Right.
But I didn't, we talk about that later, but I didn't find out much about your earlier past, about your youth.
Okay.
Not in your bio, not in Wikipedia.
There's not much to say. You know, I grew up in a little fishing town in Oregon where there was no jazz whatsoever. And, you know, I kind of got into it when I was in high school and decided that I was going to do it and applied to the Berklee College of Music. And, you know, I went there for a couple of years and things just kind of went from there. But, you know, the early years I had the little old ladies with the bun in the hair that, you know, teach you to play piano. And they did a pretty good job because I ended up with a pretty good, you know, good technique. I wasn't much into classical music, though. You know, there was some of it. I liked Rachmaninoff, I liked Debussy, but the other stuff, the more kind of powdered wig stuff, was not for me. So, you know, I was into Herbie and Keith Jarrett and, you know, McCoy Tyner and Chick Corea and stuff like that by the time I left there.
You started directly with jazz?
I took 10 years of classical lessons first. Yeah. And I was the person that was always waiting for my mom to leave the house so that I could turn the egg timer forward.
Actually, I meant by listening, you know, because usually you you hear music first before you start being affected and start to play. Yeah. Or did you have your rock years also with Led Zeppelin, Stones, Purple, whatever?
If I wanted to really embarrass myself, I would tell you the 6 records that I got when I joined the RCA record club, and you get 6 records for free. I'll just give you one idea. Okay. I got a Barry Manilow record amongst my 6 free records.
He was big time. I guess it was the early 70s something.
This would be like, 76. Yeah. Okay. Something like that. So I had a long way to go.
But nice piano stuff on Barry Manilow.
Kind of. You know, Will Lee played bass on those sessions. But it was kind of through that, actually it was through Captain and Tennille that I got a little subscription to Keyboard Magazine. And then I'm reading through that thing, and, you know, that's where I got introduced to Chick Corea, and everything went, you know, from there. And then I went all the way back and, you know, became a big Bud Powell freak.
Okay.
For a couple years. Yeah. You know, I mean, you want to see how he got to be like he was. And, you know, then I got into Art Tatum and, you know, kind of
heavy stuff.
Yeah, by the time I got to Berklee, I was just a hardcore bebop guy. But, you know, my heart was still in the synthesizer.
Okay. And then you graduated in...
Couldn't afford to graduate, so I just went for 2 years.
I found something. Where is it? Just a minute. I found something from your past, from Marshfield High School.
Ah, yes.
The acclaimed alumni. And there is under
musicians. And there I am.
There's George Witty.
Let's make sure that everybody sees my high school yearbook picture.
Oh, why not? I mean, I can black it out. But
there I am, and my brother's in there also.
Yeah. And it says, multiple Grammy winner and an Emmy to boot. Yeah, cool. So you're one of the big time guys from your high school.
Yes.
How does that feel?
You know, I think about that every day.
Yeah, bro. And then you, after high school and getting into jazz, you decided to go where?
To Berkeley, which, it was partly the idea that I wanted to get to, somewhere that I could study that music, and it was partly just the idea of getting to a metropolitan area. I grew up in a pretty rural situation, and, where I grew up, a fishing lumber town, your parents don't want to hear that you are going to become a jazz musician, But my parents, to their credit, kind of got behind it and said, let's not tell him he can't do his dream and whatever. So they told me I had 2 years worth of money, and I went, and 2 years was enough. I got a lot out of that at Berkeley, and then I got out and started taking private lessons with a saxophonist named Jerry Bergonzi.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah.
And that was really where I learned most of the stuff that has done me any good today.
Yeah.
Allein mit dem Ding hat die ausgesorgt.
Ja. Celine Dion!
Hör mal, Hammer,
Ja,
das
Hammer.
mal erlebt habe, dass wir hier
Und
bei JazzrockTV Celine Dion hören. Ne?
ja, ungewöhnlich, aber ich meine, es ist ja High-End-Music, High-End-Pop-Music, wie du das nennen willst.
Ich habe ja gerade
Perfekt
hier durchgeguckt,
produziert.
da sind ja nur das Who is Who der besten Musiker der Welt drauf. Ne?
Ja,
Also das,
absolut.
Und der
das
George
ist
Witty
nicht
mittendrin.
gekleckert, das ist geklotzt.
Ja.
Ja. Und George Witty mittendrin, und die Nummer, die wir gerade gehört haben, da war George Witty an den Keyboards zu hören, und George Witty steht auch unter Bläsersatz, wahrscheinlich hat er Keyboard-Bläser noch gespielt. Ja. Er spielt ja auch gerne mit dem Blasansatz. Aber wie es dazu kam, als er in New York City rumdümpelte und wie er dann die großen Acts kennengelernt hat, das hat er uns im Interview erzählt. Und Celine Dion war 96. Damit ging es dann nicht los. Es ging los mit Chaka Khan. Und das war in den 80ern irgendwann. Und The Woman I Am. Hören wir nachher auch noch mal rein, aber jetzt erzählt mal erst George, wie das so alles passiert ist. Ja, pretty cool. And then after Berkeley University, you went to New York City, right?
That's correct.
To get some gigs and to, get into the scene.
Yeah, to do what I could. Yeah, and the very first day, I and the guy that I moved down there with, I think between the two of us we had about $100. And we went to the 55 bar, and there were 3 guys there from North Texas State.
Yeah.
And we moved in with them, and we took a loft in Brooklyn. And that was kind of where I lived for the first whole chunk of it. And you're trying to meet different musicians, and we had hooks into things, people who knew Hiram Bullock, for example.
Yeah.
Mike Stern's bass player at that time was a guy named Eric Udell, and Eric was very wired into different situations. And, you just kind of keep meeting people and doing this and that. I was doing a top 40 band. I think the bread was $55 a night. That was way out on Long Island. Just trying to keep it together.
And one day the phone rang, and I don't know, Celine Dion's manager called and said, "We need your help."
I wish it was that easy, but it was more kind of working your way sideways. And that whole situation, I was the guy who actually did the bulk of the actual music. They had a track that they needed to get a demo done on, and by contract, but they didn't want her to sing it because they hadn't written it, this production company in New York. Okay. So they gave it to a friend of mine that I was working with, and he gave it to me, and I whacked up a real nice thing, and they played it for her like they were contractually obliged to, and she said, "I like that just like it is. I'm going to sing on it just like that." And that's basically what happened, and it went on to Falling Into You. And I was not a participant in the riches that came out of that.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that was like 1996 or 97. Yeah, and before that, the first real production that I did was a couple tracks for Chaka Khan.
Right, The Woman I Am.
Yes.
Yeah, cool
And
stuff.
believe me when I tell you that I and Gary Haas, the guy that I did those with, we packed every second of those tracks with every trick in the book.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, in hindsight, we should have left a little more breathing room
Yeah.
in those pieces. But,
That's a cool
she liked them, and she was great, I mean, she's one of my couple favorite singers ever. And it was a trip to, sit there and watch her sing over the tracks that I had done.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then the hang later was a pretty epic hang. She can do a very epic hang.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like an 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Aber das ist ja auch wieder das Who's Who der...
Die Chaka, weißt du, die hat ja tierisch zugenommen.
Wer ist er, ne? Schon.
Das war cool, die Outside, ne?
Auf einer eigentlich die Popplatte, ne?
Ja, aber es war immer, bei Chaka Khan waren immer gerade Instrumente dabei.
Ja, hör mal. Hier.
Wow, die Chaka. Ja, das war irgendwie Chaka Khan, Love with No Strings mit George Witty
aber
an den
mit Tippy.
Keyboards.
Genau, und super geiles Solo. Ne?
Ja, Synth-Gitarre.
Synth-Gitarre,
So,
ne?
steht hier in dem Cover. Ja,
Echt cool.
Viele von euch werden die haben.
Ja.
Weil so ein paar Chaka Khan-Alben muss man einfach haben. Oder? Weil die macht immer so, du hast gerade gesagt, das ist ja eigentlich eine Popplatte, ne? Aber Chaka hat immer so die
Ja.
Ausflüge zum Jazz gehabt. Dann kennst du dieses The Melody Remains the Same,
Nee, ich glaube nicht.
basierend auf einem Track von Dizzy Gillespie und Charlie Parker, und wo sie dann das Stück so aufgenommen haben, dass das Chaka, A Night in Tunisia, und
Ach so.
dass das Charlie Parker Saxophon-Break genau da reinpasst. Und das haben die in diese
Ach so, ja?
moderne Platte reingepackt. The Melody Remains the Same. A Night in
cool.
Tunisia. They call it a night in Tunisia. Super geil. Also von Chaka Khan, ich meine,
Ja.
ich liebe sie.
Können wir
Und,
eine eigene Folge machen.
Genau. Ja, und von Chaka Khan aus ging es dann später zu Celine Dion und so weiter. Und George machte so seinen Weg durch die professionelle Musiklandschaft in den US of A und traf dann irgendwie Herbie Hancock.
Irgendwie.
Ja, hat er selbst erzählt.
Studio, ne, hier, geht die Tür auf, kommt Herbie Hancock rein.
So ähnlich.
So,
Ja.
ne, hier, Treppe
Hey
runter, kommt
George,
plötzlich
this
Chico
is
wieder,
Herbie.
ne.
Here's a tune I can't play. Can you play this fucking shit? Don't know. No, somehow it happens. Er war ja erst Techniker von Herbie. Er hat seine Synthesizer programmiert, und da ist der George richtig gut. Der hat auch für den Michael Brecker seinen Laptop programmiert, dass der mit seinem ganzen Environment, Logic und total kompliziert. Und wenn ihr Lust habt, geht auf George Wittys Seite, georgewittymusic.com, glaube ich, gwittymusic.com. Und da sieht man dann, wenn man auf Music Path geht, ein bisschen was von diesen Screenshots, was er da angelegt hat. Das sieht aus wie, weiß ich nicht, wie die Zentrale der Deutschen Bundesbahn, wo man alle Strecken so in etwa. Und das macht George Witty auch. Und das hat er auch für Herbie Hancock getan. Und Herbie hat aber dann irgendwann auch mal gefragt, machst du auch noch was anderes? Und dann ging es weiter. So, yeah, Chaka, and then Herbie Hancock, that was a lot later.
That was in the last
2000
couple of years, and that was
something.
kind of an interesting situation because I had been working for him for like 3 or 4 years only on the technical side. I think he knew that I could play, but I had been programming his rig. I adapted Michael Brecker's laptop environment computer rig for Herbie, and I was doing all kinds of other technical stuff for him. And then one night we were sitting in his studio at about 12:30 in the morning, and he said, let me hear some stuff that you've done and not jazz stuff. And I don't know what possessed him to do that, but I have this film website. I've written a lot of film and TV music, and I said, there's a ton of stuff on there. And then I had the, unique experience of sitting there while Herbie Hancock listened to my music for an hour and a half. And he went from one cue to the next and one cue to the next and said, I had, no idea that you did this kind of stuff. And then he said, I've got this interesting project that I want to see if you can help me with. Mm-hmm. And it was a bunch of duet concerts that he had done with Wayne Shorter like 10 or 12 years before, and they were unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And he said that he and Wayne had talked about having somebody orchestrate these. And so I said, give them to me, and we did some, and that's a project that's still kind of in the hopper, but, I did a couple 3 arrangements, and they both seem to really like them, and Wayne does a lot of orchestral writing of his own. Mm. And they're really cool, they haven't seen the light of day yet, but it's a work in progress. There's a version of Footprints. These things they're just so amazing. Like, to sit there and listen to them, it is purely clairvoyant, because there's no way there's not even like a tonal center often, but these guys just have such a connection that there's not like really a wrong note in it, and you have to hear him to believe him. Let me just put it that way. Yeah. And then that kind of led to some other things. He was making a record, the Imagine Project, and they needed a bunch of stuff. He's often has had, ever since the early days, he used to have Pat Gleason come in and put some synth textures on things. And they needed like some orchestration on a track that originally had Seal singing on it that ended up with John Legend, which was Don't Give Up from Peter Gabriel's thing. And so, he sent me that, and I made sure that I did a very, nice, wide, lush thing that they could use, and that went on. And then there was some other tunes where they needed just a lot of colors and stuff. And, of all things, the guy that I was listening to when I was 14, just over and over and over again, just dropping the needle over and over and taking a bath in his music, I end up on a bunch of his stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. I learned that I was astonished that Herbie Hancock hires a keyboard player. I thought, can't he play on his own? Can't he arrange on his own?
He's just a very open-minded guy, and if he hears that you've got something that strikes him the right way, he'll invite you in, and often it's me kind of getting up a sound and the two of us figuring out what should be played on it. Sometimes it's just him giving me a mission and knowing that I'll run with the ball. He's still an unbelievably busy person, just one appointment after the next. Yeah. And, a lot of the stuff that he does in his studio, he does after midnight, because that's when the phone is finally done ringing. Crazy. Yeah, and he's kind of just a night owl, and, but he's still just restlessly creative.
Even he is over 70.
He is still peaking.
He's looking great.
Yeah, and musically too. He actually told me something interesting when I was working on these orchestra projects. I'm listening to these duets, and they're just mind-boggling. And I said, did you guys used to do this, at sound check when you were with Miles and so forth? And he just goes, oh no, we could never have done this back then. Yeah. So they have continued to grow and evolve. It's like a model almost of how to live your life. Wayne is in his 80s now, I think, and still, writing orchestral pieces for Esperanza Spalding, and,
It never stops.
Yeah, I posted a picture of Wayne, I think it was his 80th birthday thing, and said, I want my 80 to look like this,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Ja, Georg, zieh mal runter.
Hammer, wir sind hier schon ganz...
Wir sind vollkommen geflasht.
Steht das Wasser in den
Lange
Augen,
nicht mehr,
ne?
ja. Wir weinen ein bisschen. Don't Give Up. Herbie Hancock Imagine Project mit John Legend und Pink an den Vocals und George Witty durfte das ganze Sounddesign machen. und
Also
hat
wer sich
Keyboards
wer die Platte nicht hat, den kann man nur empfehlen, sofort
ja,
kaufen
ist ein Hammerding.
und die Platte
Ist ein
zu Hause,
Hammerding.
Kopfhörer oder auf dem Sofa und
Und
euch
das-
steht das Wasser in den Augen,
Das
versprochen.
ist so, wenn man Herbie Hancocks Karriere auch so ein bisschen so sieht, ne? Das ist so wieder, da hat er doch wieder was neu erfunden irgendwie, ne? Also diese Art von, ne? Früher die Headhunters, dann sein ganz 80er Jahre Funk, Pop, Crossover, Rocket-Zeug und dann die Possibilities, wo er schon mal so eine Vocal-Platte gemacht hat mit Christina Aguilera und
Spielt
und
sie
so
auch
weiter.
gar nicht so in den Vordergrund immer. Ne? Der lässt hier, gerade wie man das hier, man lässt den
Aber du
ganzen
nimmst
Musikern
den
diesen-
wahr, die Art,
Ja.
wie er Harmonien versteht und wie das so fließt, das ist Herbie Hancock.
Ja.
Ja. Und ich glaube, der Herbie ist echt ein Genie.
Ja.
Ein Genie. Ja, Hammer.
So.
Und natürlich ging es jetzt nicht nur um die Leute, für die George Witty gearbeitet hat, sondern auch um die Leute, mit denen er aktuell arbeitet, nämlich seine Band Third Rail. Und zur Einstimmung, damit wir den Bogen wieder spannen, nach den ganzen Geschichten, die George uns erzählt hat über Celine und Chaka und Herbie, fahren wir jetzt nochmal zurück ins alte Pfandhaus und gucken uns den zweiten Song an, den der George für uns gemixt hat. Das war Do a Little Dance. When did you start with third rail? Can you tell me a little bit about the history of?
You know, Tommy and I kind of started playing some trio gigs with Rick Fiorabracci maybe 4 years ago, and it's a little bit of a thing to get something like that going in Los Angeles from a standing start. I mean, nobody knew who I was there or anything. And so it kind of was just simmering for a while, and then Lucia here decided that she would try to book us this tour. Mm-hmm. And that brought a whole lot of things together. It brought a bunch of writing together, and, you know, we had kind of an objective and a direction. And, you know, Rick kind of got, he was doing a bunch of stuff with Billy Cobb and whatever, and some of this stuff didn't get confirmed until late in the game. And so we brought in Yannick, you know, whose writing is a very good complement for mine. I mean, I was looking at the set list the other night, and we actually just alternate, you know, his tune, my tune, his tune, my tune. Not on purpose, but just because that's a natural flow to the thing. And, you know, tremendous bass player, brings like a completely unique kind of energy to the gig. Tom's just in the band because his dad has a station wagon. So, but he yeah, but we're still using his station wagon. But yeah, you know, I really enjoy playing with both these guys, and each gig is just a whole order of magnitude better than the last. So, you know, I think we have very similar musical objectives. And it's just fun as hell, you know. I mean, I read a review of our Minden thing, and they spent half the review talking about how you could just watch it and see that we were having a gas. Yeah. And that is very much the case.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And you guys for sure plan some recordings, an album, or
Yeah,
whatsoever. Nowadays, it's just you just
we're
need some
halfway,
tracks and put them
halfway
together.
wondering about just releasing a live record. You know, I mean, I'm able to record everything separately, all the drums separate, the bass separate, myself separate, and you know, we're toying with the idea of just taking stuff from this tour and releasing a live record, because a lot of this stuff has come out in one form or another already as a studio cut. You know, we play a tune that I wrote for a Michael Brecker record that's on there. We play a tune that I wrote for a Drew Zing record that's already on Drew's record, and Yannick's stuff has already come out on his CDs. But a lot of this stuff doesn't really have a live representation yet. And, you know, listening to it, I mean, I get the mix up and then I just kind of go spotting through the tracks, and it's sounding really great.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not quite sure what's coming down the pike, but something, you know,
I would love
for
to
sure.
hear more of this live recordings.
It's,
you know.
yeah. I mean,
you can sense the atmosphere, and it's,
yeah.
it's pretty.
I mean, that was a really good gig. You know, the people in Minden, you could kind of feel them coming along for the ride, and you know, very supportive audience, and the sound guy is good. You know, it's just a great club.
Yeah.
So we had a great gig there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you guys are together on tour. And you form the group Third Rail. We talked to George before, and how do you like playing with George, Witty?
Terrible.
Janek.
I'm waiting to go home. I'm like counting the seconds. No, for me, it's George has been one of the musicians on my radar and in my ear since I first started playing music and knowing about jazz and knowing about the Brecker brothers specifically. Yeah. Michael Brecker was the reason I got the idea to move from England to America, and George was behind so much of all of that and playing, and I'm seeing him in the videos and hearing the production and wanting to play with him since many, many years. And then Randy told me, hey, George moved to LA, you know, like, because I was bugging Randy Brecker about, yeah, we should play with George, get George on the gig one day, just one gig, let's do a gig with George, you know.
Just one.
Just one, let me check it out, you know. And Randy said, well, he lives in LA, call him. And then I was too afraid to call him for quite some time, and here we are, so it's...
But that must have been a long time ago, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You played with Brecker Brothers from '93
Two, right?
Up to now, right?
More or less, yeah.
More or less.
Some incarnation there.
Yeah. But with Randy, you played all those years. Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
I just talked to Herbie Gwizdala. He's the bass player from Third Rail.
I am.
Fierce bass player. We just saw a video from Minden, and the bass solo was outstanding, I think.
Okay.
If
you say so.
What kind of bass do you play?
It's a small company from Brooklyn with a workshop about the size of this studio. They're called Fodera basses, and to me, an amazing instrument. It's the difference between driving a Ferrari or a Skoda, perhaps, you know. But at the same time, it's to me all about the music rather than the instrument. And even the bass, it's not so much about the bass, but about the music.
Yeah, and third guy, the third rail in the house is
Because I'm like so hot.
Doesn't it feel like coming home to you? You know?
Say what?
After being here before, doesn't it feel like coming home?
Yeah, it really does. I want another coffee cup.
Yeah. I got some presents for you guys. I have to watch out my tapes.
That's right. That's right.
Tom, is it also important for you the same as for Janek, the brand of your drum set? Do you have favorite brands, or do you just say, okay, it just has to sound right, and no matter what it says on it?
Well, I've been endorsing Yamaha drums for the last, since 1982.
Cool.
Yeah, I love playing on those drums. You know, I remember when I first got on Chick's band, he said, "Look, you know, there are gonna be people asking you to play stuff. You know, just a little bit of cheap advice is if you're gonna endorse something, play something you like.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's the philosophy. You know, that's the advice I've kept. You know, and Yamaha makes great stuff. They really do. They make great stuff for years. You know, and we've also. You know, if you endorse a product as an endorsee, you know, it's like you also get input to make it better. So they've always asked us, you know, like, you know, what can we do to make this better and whatnot, or check an existing thing out that's going to be coming out.
Also,
you like it or you not like it.
Involved in the development of
absolutely.
drums.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing for me about an endorsement as well. For me, we sat there for 4 weeks or something, picking the wood for the instrument and putting it together and talking about sounds. It's a really fun thing to do.
And another Yamaha artist. Yamaha is still, I think it's the oldest, or one of the oldest company which built musical instruments, and the biggest in the world. Still, I believe, because they also have brass instruments, guitars, of course.
Yeah.
And most people only know them from motorcycles.
Right.
Jet skis.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my free motorcycle. That's the only reason why I endorse the drums.
You got the jet ski, but where's the motorcycle?
I haven't tried that one
I'll have
yet.
to make washing machines. I need it.
Yeah.
And are you, when you're on tour, George, do you take your own instruments, or do you just take your, like, a sound card or your computer with sounds?
I that little red Nord is small enough that I can bring that with me, and then Yamaha has provided me with the Motif, which is my main keyboard.
Yeah.
And then we have an S90 with us as well. So, you know, one way or another, I have to have.
But you put your sounds into
Oh,
the,
yeah.
into the machines.
Yeah.
Okay. You're a very good sound programmer, as I heard on
Thank
on
you.
the video. I like this. You said it was an ARP 2600, but for me it sounded like a Moog.
Yeah.
But who cares? But
Yeah.
it says, but it sounded wonderful.
Yeah, that's the Arturia ARP.
And
It's a plug-in.
when you get a new keyboard, do you listen to all the presets and do
Oh,
you
yeah.
write down, okay, this one I like,
Oh,
and this
yeah.
I can
I mean-
tweak a little, and
Sure. You know, I get everything I can find from everywhere, and often I'm just looking for a starting point, you know. The attack of this sucks, but it settles down into a nice sustained thing, and you know, like that, and then I start editing from there. So that's part of what I like about the Yamaha stuff, is that they've made the editing very logical. You know, it's not like you go like this every time you have to change something about it. So.
do you also work a lot with keyboard splits
Oh,
or
yeah.
layers and stuff?
Oh yeah. I have some, you know, that there's like 12 different sounds laid out in different things, and some stuff that fades in with the volume pedal, and you know, I mean, we're doing some tunes with this band that are meant to be done by a 4 or 5 piece band, and I've had to kind of contrive a way to make it. But you know, I enjoy that. I'm kind of, in some ways, I'm at my happiest when I'm just setting up sounds for a gig. I don't know why that is, but it is.
Yeah, when it works out.
Custom paint job pedals.
Another 2 hours and then we're done.
Oh, I have a pedal for you.
Oh.
Do you ever go to namoddities.com?
Nam oddities.
Oh man, you will laugh your ass off.
Oh,
Nam
yes.
Oddities. This guy, it's like, you know,
The shit he picks up at Nam and
just like, you know, bubblegum flavored saxophone reeds, and like, but let me find this one. Carry on.
we are with Nam oddities.
Okay,
How is it
this
spelled?
one was on there.
ODD.
ODDIT.
Oddities, okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's namoddities.com, but if you Google Nam Oddities, you'll find it.
Nam oddities. There we go. The other room.
The other room, come Nam.
Is that it, George? The
I
other room.
Techno Geek
probably,
Toys.
yeah, probably.
Or something else.
That's it. That's it
What
for
is
sure.
that?
Just if you go through it, it's hilarious.
The oddity of the year. Put it on speaker.
Sphere.
Alphas. Oh my god. Oh god. I'm not going to sleep tonight. This is all I'm going to watch.
Oh,
Bipolar Bear.
Oh, that's good.
That's a pedal. The Bipolar Bear. Who's making it? By Dwarfcraft. Oh, they're a great pedal company.
The bipolar bear.
Pitch grinder.
Yeah. That's
Those are
actually a great pedal,
straps.
man. Dwarfcraft is awesome. Those are friends of mine.
Neo hippie vegan
Quandary.
quandary.
Yeah,
The
straps.
guy's little descriptions are really funny, though.
But this is good. I've got to look through
And
this.
every year he does one, and there's, you know, like 20 of them for every year. But there's one specific thing I don't have a signal, so I can't find it.
Okay.
It's an essential pedal.
Okay.
It's the hot pedal that everybody's using. Right?
Are you using an
only
external ring modulator? You like the ring modulator sound? You used
Actually,
it on
the-
your ring, or it's coincidence, and you used
it-
it on this track that we heard from Min?
Yeah, the Nord has a heavy ring modulator thing that it has a little FM section, just 2 operators, that does a really cool like ring modulator thing just internal to it. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah.
Cool. So, guys, I mean, looking forward to your recordings that you did and you will probably do.
Mm-hmm.
No, maybe we can contribute some video when we record, maybe Zülpich, but in any case, Fundhaus.
Yeah,
Oh.
sure.
And yeah, Let's see you guys then.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Great.
It was a cool show, I think.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
It's good to see you again.
Ja, Tom.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Ja, also das war echt cool, die Jungs hier zu haben,
Ja.
den Tom, den Yannick und den George. Also ich muss echt sagen, das sind ja hervorragende Musiker, die auf ihrer Vita alle Big Names haben, die man sich so vorstellen kann. Und die saßen hier und haben über ihre Turnschuhe gelabert und waren
Ganz
lustig.
normale Menschen, ne?
Ganz normale Menschen zum Anfassen. Und haben auch ein bisschen was jetzt gerade über ihr Musiker- und Technik-Dasein und so, was ist wichtig, was ist nicht wichtig geredet. Fand ich alles super. Also
Ja.
die kommen auch bald wieder auf Tour, sind auch in Deutschland wieder unterwegs. Bitte auf der Webseite vom George mal die Tourdates checken. Lucia, hier unsere Stammtourmanagerin aus Deutschland, wird sich um die Tournee auch wieder kümmern. Und wir haben noch einiges vor in nächster Zeit. Loud Heiser steht an. Und,
Ja, sind ein paar Sachen geplant.
Genau.
Das Jahr läuft so langsam
Chris
an.
Mandoki in Berlin mit Dave Weckel und Dean Brown. Da wollen wir hin. Ja.
Ja.
Und wir haben noch vieles mehr hier so auf unserer Uhr stehen, was wir alles machen könnten. Aber
Ja.
dazu brauchen wir jetzt wirklich nach 4,5 Jahren eure
Ja.
Hilfe.
Also wir brauchen ein bisschen Unterstützung. Ihr wisst ja, wir machen das alles hier for free für euch. Und das ist ja auch unser Konzept. Wir wollten jetzt nicht hier so einen Channel schaffen, wo man jede Folge irgendwie jedes Mal beim Anschauen kaufen muss. Wir machen das for free. Aber wir würden das natürlich gerne noch mal so ein bisschen aufs nächste Level heben. Ne?
Ja.
Wir bräuchten noch mal so ein bisschen, ne, das ist ja auch manchmal so das Feedback von euch, was ist denn da, kann der Sound beim Konzertabnahme nicht besser sein oder so. Das geht alles, aber das sind natürlich dann wieder Kosten, die
Das
dazu
ist
kommen.
Equipment,
Ne?
das ist vielleicht, dass wir noch außer uns beiden noch jemand mitnehmen
Ja,
müssen
genau,
zu den
dann
Konzerten.
vielleicht jemand, der den Ton macht und so
Genau,
weiter. Ne?
das ist hier, es fängt an, dieses kleine Studio, irgendwie, das gehört uns ja auch nicht, wir müssen hier Miete bezahlen. Die Kameras, die ihr nicht seht, weil die uns filmen, die kosten auch. Also es fallen hier jede Menge Kosten an. Wir haben es auf der Patreon-Seite ja so ein bisschen dargestellt, was so eine Folge kostet. Und wir brauchen jetzt wirklich, damit hier bei Jazzrock TV das Licht anbleiben kann,
Ja,
brauchen wir
also-
eure Hilfe. Und ihr könnt von einem, ich glaube, es geht mit Dollar, ne? Von einem Dollar pro Folge natürlich so viel geben, wie ihr wollt. Und dann gibt es verschiedene Steps, in denen man sich verschiedene Levels eines Patrons, den man hier werden kann. Und ihr bekommt natürlich, je mehr ihr gebt, desto mehr bekommt ihr. Und
Genau.
wir geben uns Mühe, wir geben euch alles, ja. Und wenn ihr nachfragt und sagt, wir wollen das mal sehen, wir wollen das mal sehen, oder wir treffen demnächst den Musiker und ihr sagt, stell dir noch mal die und die Frage, die hat mich immer interessiert, dann machen wir das für euch, wenn ihr Patrons seid.
Genau,
ja.
das ist nämlich auch das Portal, um das geht, patreon.com, in dem Fall für uns, die Seite patreon.com/JazzrockTV. Und das Konzept ist super, weil da geht es nämlich darum, dass die Leute, die wirklich das gucken, in dem Fall unsere Folgen, können uns da unterstützen. Und ich finde das eine super Sache. Und jeder
Ja.
kann so viel geben, wie er möchte. Wir legen das völlig offen pro Folge. Und wenn jeder, der unsere Folgen guckt, einen $1 gibt, und ein $1 ist, ne,
Ein Dollar ist nicht viel.
ist
Das ist weniger als
so
ein
viel,
Euro.
so
Und-
wenig.
Ja, ich muss sagen, ich habe mal angefangen, ich habe so ein Projekt, Crowdfunding-Projekt bei Pledge, war es nicht bei Patreon, bei Pledge, mit Dave Weckel und Jay Oliver, die zusammen gerade ein Album machen, und dann kriegte ich jede Menge Videos aus dem Studio, ich kriegte so halbfertige Mixes zugeschickt und Fotos und jede Menge Spaß und so. Und das geben wir euch auch. Ja?
Ja.
Und ich habe auch nochmal, hast du auch gemacht, diesen amerikanischen Podcast, Geekbeat TV, wer sich für Technik interessiert,
Ja.
mag da mal reingucken. Haben wir auch mal geplätscht oder supported, weil er auch bei Patreon ist. Und die geben auch ein bisschen was extra. Und genauso machen wir das auch. Guckt euch das an. Ja? Es sind 2 Klicks.
Und
Einmal
fertig.
zustimmen, okay, wir machen das. Und dann einmal PayPal. Ich zahle $1 pro Folge. Ich zahle $5, $10, $20 pro Folge. Je nachdem, wie euer Portemonnaie so aussieht. Und es bleibt euch vollkommen frei. Und je mehr ihr gebt natürlich, desto mehr bekommt ihr von uns.
Ja, also
Na,
wir
toll.
haben ja schon gesagt, ne, vielleicht gibt es mal so ein bisschen was hinter den Kulissen, vielleicht was von einem Konzert, was wir nicht in der Folge haben.
Ja.
Vielleicht gibt es auch mal eine Promo-CD, die wir loswerden wollen, weil wir sie schon zweimal hatten. Also solche Sachen, die geben wir euch gerne zurück, wenn ihr uns unterstützt.
Die
Denn wir machen das
ungespülte
alles für
Kaffeetasse
euch.
von Georg, nachdem er hier seinen Kaffee geschlürft hat, die kann raus, ja. Also jetzt nochmal im Ernst, wir wären euch sehr dankbar, wenn ihr uns unterstützt. Das ist ja alles ein Hobbyprojekt im Prinzip und der Georg und ich, wir haben hier schon ordentlich reingebuttert. Also davon kann man sich
Das denkt er nicht
2,
drüber
3 schöne Autos kaufen.
Ja, wahrscheinlich, ja.
Und jetzt langsam müssen wir daran denken, wie es weitergehen soll. Ja,
Ja.
Und wir müssen uns weiterentwickeln. Wir brauchen bessere Technik. Wir brauchen bessere Tonaufnahmegeräte. Wir müssen auch bei unseren Kameras demnächst mal irgendwie einen Next Step machen. Wir wollen unser Studio erhalten und erneuern immer wieder für euch. Und deshalb nochmal die Bitte,
Ja.
become a Patreon.
Patrons. Also, das
Ja.
war eine neue Folge Jazzrock TV.
Richtig.
Und demnächst große Sachen stehen an, geht's weiter.
Wie gesagt,
Freuen wir
Lara
uns.
Tyser, Chris Mendoki und vieles, vieles mehr. Demnächst hier auf diesem Kanal. Bis dahin. Ciao.